Hey, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. We have Anthony D'Ambrosio with you here. This is our third try. It appears that somebody does not want this out, but we're going to move forward. Anthony, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much, Glenn, for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
You are welcome. Tell my viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm the son of a theologian, a professional Catholic. I have spent the last 10 years of my life trying to bring the gospel to millennials and to young people, particularly to those who are outside of the church. And right now, I'm working on making a film about Saint Maximilian Kolbe and his passion. But I'm sure that you've got more detailed questions to get into. But that's the top line. That's the top layer.
I have a great love for St. Colby. One of my boys is named after him. And I was able to visit his cell in 1996 in Auschwitz. So this goes deep for me. So I'm really excited about this interview. Why did you make the movie?
Yeah, it's a good question and rather deep one. I think that for me, I've experienced a lot of struggle and a lot of suffering in my life, and a lot of doubt and struggle in my faith as well. And I found that the story of Colby really spoke to me in an unexpected way during one of these seasons of suffering and doubt, in a way that really helped to save my faith and to give me hope when I was facing what felt like an impossible circumstance, that felt meaningless and like it didn't have purpose. And I think that Colby and his story really showed me how to navigate doubt and suffering and difficulty and trial, um, how to navigate that experience of life, that where when something goes completely wrong and there is no salvaging it, what do you do and how do you relate with God in that circumstance? And so it felt to me very relevant. Like, I think there's a lot of people in my generation who really need a witness in that kind of space in their life. And so I would say that I just want to bring hope to the world, and I think Colby's story is one of the most hopeful stories that I've heard in my life.
So, in talking to your sister, you yourself got pretty sick, didn't you?
Yeah, I went through a undiagnosed infection that really sidelined my life. I just graduated from seminary and was kind of ready to take on the world, fell in love, had God really speak to me about kind of this is the person that you're going to marry, and was on track to get married. We're about to get engaged, and um, this infection kind of came up out of what seemed like nowhere, and nobody knew what to do with it. It was really difficult um, to tag down as one of these kind of strange diseases that took really many years to get diagnosed. And so in the meantime, it I was unable to sleep more than a couple hours a night. Really difficult cognitive issues and emotional issues and weird physical ailments that came along with it. All that made um, doing normal life rather impossible. And I wasn't able to move forward in marriage. I had no idea what I could possibly do in my career. Just as a man, it was like everything in that my future was supposed to be was kind of taken away from me. Very Job kind of moment. And in the midst of that, I really um, was grappling with my faith. Like, how could God allow something like this to happen? Um, lots and lots of late nights where I'm up in the middle of the night alone, just sort of my faith unraveling. And in those times, I found a really unexpected comfort. I don't know if you've ever had an experience of a saint kind of coming to you and picking you, but I had this uh, strange kind of dreamlike meditation that would begin to happen, of me having these honestly like drag out faith debates with Maximilian Kolbe inside of the cell. I felt like I was experiencing the story from the perspective of the men who he joined in the starvation bunker. I wasn't starving for food, but I was starving for sleep, and that was a real, very real starvation. And so, in that place, I was having these conversations with him about faith and about God and about hope, and it's really changed my perspective on so many things about the faith and about Jesus. And so, yeah, I think it really gave me a lot of hope, and that's part of how the movie, the beginning of the movie idea came to me.
That's excellent. I love the hope part of your answer, honestly. So, in the movie, The Triumph of the Heart, you have several characters. How did you narrow down each character? Were they friends of yours? Did you imagine this? Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's another great question. So, in this time in Auschwitz, we have a pretty good idea of the types of people who were there. We don't have any data. Unfortunately, the Germans didn't keep any records of who exactly was in the cell with Kolbe. We only know who died that month. We just have records of the names of those who passed at that in that place in that month. And um, one of the things that I didn't know, and that most people I think don't know about Auschwitz at the time, is that we really know of it as a part of the Holocaust, but before that, it was actually an extermination camp for breaking the identity and the leadership of Poland. It was used to exterminate people who had some sort of leadership capacity, but I think even more so, it was used to sort of break the soul, break the spirit of the Polish people, so that the Nazis could really enslave them. And so there would have been people there who were involved in leadership. There would have been POWs. There would have been um, people who were strong kind of leaders in the Polish army, Polish resistance. There would have been people who were in media. Of course, this is part of how Kolbe was brought there. So you have this kind of slice of the upper echelons of Polish society that are all brought to such devastation, and ultimately brought to sort of the end of their humanity in this place. And that's really what the goal of the Nazis were. So I determined who I would put in the cell based on some of the averages of the types of people who were present.
Cool. That's wonderful. Yeah, because I
Mhm.
wondered how in the world. I mean, you got to come up with all these, several different personalities and what they're longing for. Very, very interesting. So, you're kind of crazy, man. I heard you took a film crew and flew to Poland, and did you fly to Krakow?
We went to Warsaw, actually, is where we landed, and then we shot the film in Łódź, which is a an hour and a half west of Warsaw.
So, how did you determine where, like the site of the location site? How did you choose that?
Yeah, it's there's a sort of beggars can't be choosers kind of situation. We were trying to be both beggars and choosers, and ultimately God allowed us to be that, which was amazing. But we were looking around Warsaw, somewhere that we would be able to find enough. I guess there has to be enough things in a place to be able to do a film there. There's got to be lodging close. There's got to be maybe an airport close. There's got to be a place for parking for all of these different people who are coming in and out. There's got to be power, a power station where you can draw power for your lights and your cameras and all the batteries. And you've got many different departments that are all working together. You've got the costume department, you've got the hair and makeup department. They all need their own spaces. So we had to find a prison cell that was an old prison cell that we could repaint, that we could make safe, that we could do lots of like renovations on. but that also had all of this other infrastructure around it. And it was looking for a needle in the haystack in Poland. But actually, there were quite a few options, and we did find one that was able to work within our price, and that's kind of how it all came together. Like, how close is it and convenient is it to get to from the other places that you're shooting, things like that. It's a massive project to put all of that together with all the dates. It's like, if you could imagine, if you've ever been involved in planning a wedding, um, it's or a retreat or something, it's like doing that, but times 10 for 30 days in a row. That's basically what it is. So you have a lot of logistics. God bless the producers that put all that together.
And it really is a faith journey, not
Hmm.
starting with you. I mean, maybe starting with you. It's a faith journey. The producers have to get on board. You have to find actors. How did you find the actors for this role or for this movie?
Yeah, it's a good question. We had, I would say that as people started to find this project, people just started coming to us. I posted casting calls, I posted crew calls, all over the internet, just on my social media, in different Catholic groups, and all of a sudden people would see it and be like, "Wow, this is really cool. My friend is an actor and he fits that part," or "Wow, that my uncle actually is an actor and he seems like he has a face that would be similar to this kind of thing." And slowly but surely, people just found their way to us that wanted to be involved. We put it up on a bunch of different secular sites as well, and we had a pretty good mix of people who are Catholic who worked on it and people who are not, which I always think is really powerful and profound, because you get to build this culture that is evangelical even in its nature, in the act of producing the art. So we found an incredibly deep faith journey that we all embarked on together, and the amount of conversion that happened even in the context of the creation of the thing, the amount of healings and hearts being changed and moved, it's indescribable. It's indescribable how much of that was going on.
So back in the early 2000s, we all know The Passion of the Christ came out. I remember watching Mel Gibson on Jay Leno, and it was a fascinating interview. And Mel was very careful with the wording because he said, "I made this movie, but God really helped me." As
Mhm.
you were filming this movie, were there moments where you thought, "Oh my goodness, this is only the Holy Spirit that can be doing this because this was not predictable"?
Wow, there's so many of them. Um, there's so many of them. It really was a daily experience. I so underestimated what we would need to make this movie. Just as a beginner, as a first timer, um, I wildly underestimated it. And I had a lot of people who told me that I was underestimating the amount of money it would cost, the amount of time it would take, how difficult it would be to find the people or the places, all of that stuff. But uh, I for whatever reason, God decided that He was not going to let us fail, and kept bringing the person or the thing that we needed exactly at the very last minute, mind you, but exactly at the time that we needed it, and not a moment sooner. He would bring us the person or thing that we needed. A good example of this would be, um, we were shooting these big Auschwitz scenes, these scenes where uh, that are everybody's familiar with, the lineup where Kolbe is sort of picked out of line, and sorry, Francis Guy Nietzsche is picked out of line, and Kolbe steps out to trade his life. These are scenes where we have over 100 extras involved. We have dogs, we have German vehicles driving up and down the road, and it's a lot of moving parts. And we needed, in order to make that scene really believable, we needed a stunt person who could coordinate all of the stunts. And I didn't realize this before I did it, but usually if anybody's going to be beaten, they have to be able to respond in a way that feels really believable. And there's a lot of that in Auschwitz. It's Auschwitz. Like, you're not going to be gently pulled out of line. You're going to be like hit with clubs and stuff. And so we had all of these extras that were kind of set up for this, but we didn't realize that they were all going to have to perform these stunts. And so we needed somebody who was a really good stunt coordinator who could teach them very quickly how to respond to these beatings, and who could also help to make those look really believable. Otherwise, it would make that whole scene look, the whole scene would just be complete, yeah, catastrophe if you had somebody that was getting hit by a club and they just kind of like inched over a little bit or overreacted to it, as many extras do. So we did not have a stunt coordinator, uh, even up to 3 days before the shoot.
Oh, wow, no kidding.
we were we were just sweating because um, a good stunt coordinator is very expensive. We didn't have any money to pay anybody, and so we needed somebody who could be there and do it for very cheap. And I got a call from um, our main actor who plays Kolbe, who's also a director who's done other films in the Polish market. And he was like, "Hey, I have this friend Tomasz. He does stunts. Do you guys need somebody that does that?" We're like, "Yes, yes." He's like, "Okay, he loves Colby. He might be willing to do something for you guys. Just give him a call." And I'm talking to him, and he's just this really gentle, kind of fatherly presence. And he says, "Yeah, I'll bring my daughter, and I'll bring a couple of my teammates out who will help to perform some of the beatings and stuff, so that you guys don't have to teach extras to do all of that. And it's going to be great, and I'll take the whole kind of managing the extras for you off your plate, for very, very cheap." And I happen to also be available because this actor strike that's happening in the U.S. And so then I looked up his accolades, and it turns out that the last movie that he was working on was Mission Impossible. He was Tom Cruise's stuntman, or a stunt coordinator. He doesn't need a stuntman, but he was a coordinator for him. So this guy was like super high up in the industry, and out of his love for Colby, was willing to help us make this movie a reality. And things like that were happening the entire time that we were in Poland. That's just one of thousands of moments like that.
What do you want viewers to get out of the movie? Earlier, you talked about hope. I mean, hope is really, I think, important in the times we're living right now. But what do you want the viewers to get out of the movie?
I would like the viewers to get what I got out of it, which is a a hope in life, even in the midst of disappointment, darkness, and trial. I think as Christians, I don't know exactly like how you see kind of the world at this point, but I think that many of us feel like we're living in rather apocalyptic times. Um, I've certainly experienced persecution, and in very small and subtle ways, I think it's becoming harder and harder to be a Christian, and to have material success, or to live in the world with like this sort of standards of living that other people have, that are kind of the normies out there, if that makes sense. And I think that is only going to get more and more difficult. Uh, Not to mention, I think, the economic constraints that are being placed on us even more now, and will continue to be so, I believe. And so I think all of that together makes for a rather disillusioning experience. Many of people of my generation and coming generations are jaded. They're finding it very difficult to trust anything anybody says, and have developed a rather like gallows humor, um, that might be finding humor in this like sort of nihilistic worldview of everything kind of going down. And I think that as Catholics, we get to provide an alternative to that. Um, the cross is a beautiful sign, and we as Catholics, we don't take the Christ off of it, right? Like, we look at the crucifixion and we say this is really where we connect with Jesus right now. Like, the resurrection's coming, but right now in this mass, in this church at this time, our connection with Jesus is through the crucifixion. And um, because we are not willing to, I think historically speaking, dress it up and take Christ off the cross and present a everything gets better at the end, um, of every story kind of like movie or perspective on faith, we have a very um, like gnarly kind of heavy metal, like very grounded faith that presents hope without painting a pretty picture that just glosses over the hard parts. And I think that is really a perspective that's needed in the world right now, and one that I feel like, as mature Catholics, this story can really help us to deepen.
So, when will I get to see the movie?
It's a good question. Right now, we're running a crowdfunding. Um, that is very important because how this crowdfunding goes will very much determine the distribution deal that we get on the back end. The more people contribute, even small amounts, the more that they will see that there's a huge market for this, that Catholics really want to see not just this movie, but movies like this. I think that when you're trying to do something new, distributors really don't want to take a risk, right? And since the Passion of the Christ, there have not been lots of Catholic movies that have been successful. I would say Father Stu has been a really good example of something that has done rather well. But even then, he had to really distribute it himself and fund pretty much the whole process of it. And so, hats off to Marky Mark for making that happen. But I think now there's some eyes on faith-based content, and distributors who are watching this will determine not just when but how. Like, if this gets a theatrical release, if it's going to be given that kind of momentum, that will be determined by how this crowdfunding campaign goes. But our hope is that August will be when we get to see it brought out to the world.
August 2024, you're thinking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Great. Do you have any more movies in the works for the future?
I actually have quite a few. None that I'm like completely free to talk about at this point, but I will just say that we have some really, really fun, really beautiful ideas. Hopefully, ones that are a little bit less intense than Auschwitz. I think that our team is going to need a break. We were all like, we need to do a comedy next. So, yeah, you have a couple of really beautiful movies that are in the works, and if this one goes well, will give us the opportunity to bring to the world.
Excellent. Where can our viewers go to find out more information about you and the crowdfunding to help you guys?
Yeah, thetriumphoftheheart.com, or if you want to go directly to the crowdfunding campaign, you can put in Colby's prisoner number, which is 16670.life.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the program. We will all be praying for you and your team. And God bless you guys. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Third time's the charm, huh? Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, God bless you. We will be praying for you.
Yeah, God bless you too, Glenn. I'll talk to you later.